I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And we cover a lot of criminal cases here on Court TV. And many of them are murder cases where someone has lost their life. Someone else's life is on the line, either life in prison or perhaps a trip to death row and the death chamber. High stakes in these criminal cases. The tension is extremely high. The pressure is on in these trials. Now, in the civil world, where people aren't charged with crimes but are sued and counter-sue, oftentimes the tension isn't as high because many times they're just kind of fighting over money. Sometimes it's companies suing each other, etc. But there are some examples of civil cases where it's about something much, much more. Just take last year, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Yeah, it's a civil case. Yeah, there was money involved, but it wasn't about money. It was about a man who was trying to get his reputation back, a man whose life had been ruined by a woman, and he wanted the public to see it and understand what he believes really happened. And that's what played out in Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, a civil case. There's another civil case we're following. It's set to go to trial this summer here on Court TV, and it involves Gabby Petito. She was that young woman who went on this, what was supposed to be this super fun, exciting adventure with her boyfriend slash fiance, Brian Laundrie. They were going to drive around the country and live the van life. The only problem was both of them left Florida and he came back alone, just him in the van. Gabby was nowhere to be found. She was missing. And nobody told Gabby's parents. Nobody. They kind of figured out she was missing. They were wondering where she was, and they wanted some help to find their missing daughter. But guess who wasn't helping? Brian Laundrie and his family. We know how it turns out. Gabby ended up being found dead, murdered out west. Brian Laundrie takes his own life. He's the one who murdered her. So now we're left with two sets of parents. And the Petitos and Gabby's parents still angry, bitter, hurt, and harmed by the actions of Brian's parents. By not providing them the information, not returning a phone call. Take a look.
All right, what I need from everybody here is help. Because the goal is still not met. And that goal is to bring Gabby home safe, all right? And I'm asking for help from everyone here. I'm asking for help everyone at home. I'm asking for help from the parents of Brian. And I'm asking for help of the family members and friends of the Laundrie family as well. You know, there is a tip line that you can call anonymously. Whatever you can do to make sure my daughter comes home, I'm asking for that help. There's nothing else that matters to me now. This girl right here, this is what matters. That is it. Anything else, it comes second to this.
What is your message from
We have had no communication between our family and theirs. It's absolutely absurd. We don't understand why. They were traveling together. At some point you left there. We know you've been home since September 1st. You know something. And the fact that you're hiding behind your attorney, which we understand your constitutional rights not to speak, but it doesn't make any sense to us. None whatsoever.
The Laundries did not help us find Gabby. They're sure as not going to help us find Brian. For Brian, we're asking you to turn yourself in to the FBI or the nearest law enforcement agency.
It's about what they did with the information that they have, not just not disclosing what they knew to the Laundries. And by the way, they could have, to the Petito family, excuse me, they could have made an anonymous phone call and said where the body was located, and that would have helped this situation tremendously. They knew, starting on August 28th of 2021, that Gabby was dead. They knew where Gabby's body was. They knew that the Petito family was desperately searching for information. But they did things affirmatively. They didn't just remain silent. What that attorney said in particular is telling. So there's no question that he represented, that he was making that statement on behalf of the Laundries, because he says, it is our understanding that a search has been organized for Miss Petito in or near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming on behalf of the Laundrie family. It is our hope that the search for Miss Petito is successful and that Miss Petito is reunited with her family. That statement was issued with the full knowledge and consent of the Laundries, with the full knowledge on the part of the Laundries that Gabby was not alive and that Gabby's body was located somewhere out west. And instead, they make a statement saying, we hope you find her. We hope you're reunited, giving them false hope that perhaps their daughter is still alive. If that's not outrageous, Your Honor, I don't know what is outrageous.
Even if everything that the Petitos have alleged is true, which of course we deny, but even if they are true under the law, there is no basis, legal basis, for the cause of action as it's been set forth. The gist of their complaint is that the Laundries remain silent, and we are now, or I should say the Petitos are now looking to somehow hold Chris and Roberta liable for the actions of their son because they chose to remain silent.
You could understand the outrage. And this is now a lawsuit. It's set for trial this summer. This is about more. This isn't about money. This is about something much, much more. It's about human decency at its core. Now, something else developed here in this case I need to tell you about. There was a letter that was discovered. This is Pat Riley. He's the Petito family attorney talking about what happened after Gabby's found dead. Brian takes his own life. He's found dead. Now they've got all these possessions. What do they have to do with them? Take a close listen.
We were all in the same room, so we had agreed beforehand for the most part as to what belonged to whom based upon the receipt from the execution of the search warrant at the Laundrie home. There were just a few items that we weren't certain who it belonged to, so we had to look through those things. But you know, the Laundries not only got the notebook, they also received a letter which Roberta Laundrie wrote to Brian Laundrie. It's undated. And as I've said before, on the cover, on the envelope, it said burn after reading. I don't know when it was written, but what was contained within that letter leads me to believe it was written after Gabby had been murdered. And we had asked for a copy of that, and Attorney Bertolino would not agree to give us a copy.
So Gabby Petito's parents looking to get access to this letter that was written by Brian Laundrie's mother to Brian. What's in that letter? What does it say? What's the significance of it? Take a look here. This is from the December 22 filings from Gabby's family. This request certainly also would include the note that Roberta Laundrie wrote to Brian Laundrie, which she offered to bring a shovel to help bury the body. The note was released to the custody of Mr. Bertolino on Friday, June 24th, 2022 by the FBI. So there you could see the concern from the Petitos. Wait a minute, there's a letter where you're talking about a shovel to bury a body? It's now part of this lawsuit. They're requesting to see it. Now, tonight, what we have for you is a response from Roberta Laundrie about this letter she wrote. Okay, this is an affidavit, a sworn statement that has been filed with the court. Here's part of it. I wrote a letter to my son on or about the end of May of 2021. Although I do not know the exact date I wrote the letter, I do know that I wrote it and gave it to Brian before Brian and Gabby left Florida for New York. The purpose of the letter was to reach out to Brian while he and I were experiencing a difficult period in our relationship. Brian and I share a love of stories, and some of the language in the letter was using similar phrases to describe the depth of a mother's love. The two books that come to mind are The Runaway Bunny and Little Bear. In addition, Gabby had given Brian a book called Burn After Writing. This is where my message to Brian came from, and I wrote on the cover of the letter for Brian, quote, burn after reading. That's a little different. The book was called Burn After Writing. Anyhow, there are some other phrases that I used in the letter which are not found in the books I shared with Brian as a child. However, these phrases were common enough in our circle of friends and family to describe who you could turn to in the most troubling times of your life. While I used words that seemed to have a connection with Brian taking Gabby's life, I never would have fathomed the events that unfolded months later. So I guess just as general sort of support for her son, she told him, I'll bring you a shovel to help bury the body. Wow. Wow. Let's bring in the think tank. What do they think of this? Joining us tonight in Seattle, Washington, trial attorney and author of the book Justice in the Age of Judgment, From Amanda Knox to Kyle Rittenhouse and the Battle for Due Process in the Digital Age, Ann Bremner. In West Palm Beach, Florida, great to see you, a former police lieutenant, trial attorney, Rick King is with us. The Steelers are back. And in Los Angeles, California, Deputy Public Defender for LA County, Philip Dubé. All right, great to see everyone tonight. This trial is set for August. We are tracking it. We are getting ready to cover it. What do you think of this letter, Ann Bremner? Are you buying what Roberta Laundrie is selling in her affidavit, that it was just some phrases that our circle of friends use all the time? I'll bring you a shovel to bury the body.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am not buying what she's selling. I don't think anyone's going to buy that. I mean, is she like clairvoyant? Like, oh, geez, and ultimately this is what came to pass? I mean, it's just laughable. And I can't believe any lawyer would actually let that be filed in this case. And doesn't it actually compound the outrage and the damages to Gabby Petito's family that she's saying things like this? I mean, I'm just wondering, I mean, is that going to be something that even adds to the damages they're seeking in this very outrageous case?
So they're claiming here, Rick, that this was written before the murder. But what are the odds of writing, just trying to patch things up with your son and tell him, I'll bring you a shovel to bury the body, and then he murders someone?
Yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good, and it's disconcerting to say the least. I don't know when the letter was written. I think the parties have agreed that they don't know when exactly the letter was written, and I think that Mr. Bertolini has talked about contextually, when you read it in context, it might, make a little more sense. I think that overall doesn't look good, and I agree with Ann that certainly that compounds the trauma and distress for the family when they read these letters. Whenever it was written, it's not going to be good.
Yeah, Philip, criminal cases, there's always a lot of tension inside the courtroom. Many times you have the victim's family there, you have we've seen these things play out. I can't imagine being in the courtroom when this trial happens and you've got Gabby's family on one side, Brian's family on the other. Because this is so personal. So personal, and what happened to the Petito family, their daughter's missing, and the people who know exactly what's going on tell them nothing and actually issue some statements that seem to be a little misleading.
Yeah, if they in fact did that, and the misleading statements go to the whereabouts of the missing young girl, Gabby, unfortunately, under Florida's tort law, for intentional infliction of emotional distress, under their case law, that does constitute extreme and outrageous conduct. I respectfully disagree with that, although I am not the Court of Appeals. I cannot overrule those decisions, right? Adam is laughing in the background. But I'll tell you why I disagree, because there is, in my opinion, a distinction between outrageous conduct and outrageous statements. When you look at the law of intentional infliction of emotional distress, it presupposes that the tortfeasor, if you will, engaged in a course of conduct that caused extreme emotional distress, as opposed to saying outlandish things. Not to mention that they're merely imputed by representation to them by virtue of what their counsel said. So I think the whole thing is a little convoluted, and frankly, I find it a little unfair.
Rick, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond because, once again, we have someone from California going down to Florida and trying to change things in that great state of Florida. We can't have them do that. But what are your thoughts, Rick, about the way this trial is going to play out? Because to me, it's not about anything having to do with money and everything having to do with just getting an opportunity to ask the questions, get the answers, clear the air, and confront someone who many believe, or this couple that engaged in some outrageous behavior, just human behavior. I'm not talking about legal, illegal, whatever you want to say, but outrageous human behavior.
I mean, I think clearly the Petitos are looking for closure. They're looking for the answers to the questions they've been holding on to since they lost their daughter. In terms of how the trial is going to play out, it's going to be emotional for everyone. I mean, from the Petito side, you recognize, man, they lost their daughter in a manner which they have no idea how it happened. But on the Laundrie side, you know, they as horrible as the murder of Gabby Petito was, they also lost their son. So there's going to be some tension and and there's pain on both sides of this case. I don't necessarily know, as Mr. Dubé pointed out, I don't know that the intentional infliction of emotional distress, the law, how it's going to play out. I know how it's going to play out in Florida. Unfortunately for Philip, not going to play out the way he says it should. It's going to play out in the other direction. But I think overall, the tenor and the atmosphere of that trial is going to be quite, somber and painful for everyone involved.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts? Because, it's a civil case, so everybody has to testify, right? Everyone's got to get up on the stand. You can't, say, oh, no, you're the defendant in this, you don't have to testify. No, either side can call either side to the stand.
That's right. Right. So do they call her adversely to begin with and read that affidavit and the letter? I mean, it's going to come in. It goes to the weight, not the admissibility of the letter. I mean, the jury's going to hear it, and they're going to hear her very lame and actually reprehensible explanation for what she was trying to say or what she was trying to sell. So do they want to call her out of the gate? Maybe. I mean, call these people adversely and prove your case through their own words and their own writings.